Hello and welcome back to another episode of From Prison to the Streets. I'm Eric. I did 11 years in prison and I talk about prison stuff. Today we're doing part 3 of my video series with Harvey Seidel from HarveyTalks Prison. He has a small YouTube channel devoted to prison stuff, a lot like my own, and we're from the same region in the United States. He's in Missouri, I'm in Kansas. We talk about the Midwest prison system. But if you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, I recommend you go do so. I'll leave a link in the description and I'll put a thing up. I will also leave cards and links to Harvey's channel so you can go check that out. And this video will be a part of a playlist that you can go and see our full discussion in. And you should also go and check out Harvey's channel because he has a lot of other great content on the channel. So be sure to check him out. And I want to thank Harvey for doing this with me. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, so let's get into the video.
There's this one guy, I told the story of. He found out I had a release date. This guy did not like me at all, and the feeling was kind of mutual. So we just kind of stayed out of each other's way. But I seen him coming up to me, and I thought, oh man, here we go, He knows I got a date, he's going to do something, But he comes up to me, he has his sunglasses on, he takes them off. He goes, I don't like you. I don't like you at all. But he said, we've done our time together. He said, get out and stay out. Much respect. And he gives me a fist bump. And I was just, I was just amazed, That I don't really know why he didn't like me, but for me, with him, it was just something about him just rubbed me the wrong way, I just tried to stay out of his way, It's just, there was something about him I didn't like.
I mean, some people are like that, man. I remember when I was getting ready to get out, a dude came up to me that I didn't really like, and he came up to me and he said, yeah, I'll see you soon. You'll be right back. And it was just like, you know what, man, now just to prove you wrong, I'm going to toe the line when I get out. I was planning on that anyway, but since you said that I couldn't do it, I'm going to do it now.
Yeah,
but
you gave me a little motivation.
Yeah. I mean, you tell me I can't, and I'm going to do it every time, But on the other side of that, when I got out, there were so many people who had respect for me just because we'd been doing time together. I didn't really know them, but even if you don't like someone, if you see how they carry themselves and you can respect how they carry themselves, that's a big thing. You don't always have to like someone. There are a lot of people in prison that I didn't like, but on the other hand, I couldn't say too many bad things about them because they paid their debts, they minded their own business, and they weren't rats. So,
Right. I respected this guy, for who he was and how he handled himself and everything. And I guess that's the way he was with me. But we just didn't like each other, rubbed each other the wrong way or something,
Sometimes it's just like that with personalities, though. Did you ever have that problem with a cellie? I imagine you've had quite a few cellies. I actually had a cellie for a long time. On one occasion, I lived with the same dude for about 5 years. But before that and after that, I went through quite a few cellies, and some of them I didn't really get along with for various reasons. But one of the bigger things was personality conflict. Did you ever run into that?
Oh, yeah, many times. In Missouri now, they classify you as alpha, kappa, or sigma. Alphas, that's just self-explanatory who they are. And they can only sell with kappas and other alphas. Kappas can sell with alphas or sigmas. This can sell with other sigmas and kappas. So I was a kappa, so I was able to sell with anybody. On the one hand, you might get a sigma, which is, well, you're pretty easy to sell with. You can pretty much run the sell with them. But at the same time, they might have a messed up case. So, I usually got rid of those. They put them in the cell. On the other hand, you might get put in a cell with an alpha, and either you get along with him or you guys are going to butt heads. It's just like that, you know. So I've seen two alphas get put in the cell together that got along real good on the yard and get in the cell together and just start fighting.
Yeah.
Because they just can't.
It's a completely different story when you're in there all day together, especially if your schedules ain't right. You know, if you and I work at the same time and we're in the cell at the same time, we're spending all that time together.
Exactly.
You know, it's rough.
Even with my partner, my one I call brother, even with him, you know, one time lockdown, and you know, lockdown in a tight area like that, tight cell, closed, not very big. It seems like just breathing gets on your nerves, you know. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Anything he does, just you know, because you're locked in there for however long you're on lockdown, and you just get tired of seeing the guy. You know?
Yeah, I do know exactly what you're talking about, man. I've been celled with some dudes that I couldn't stand. Matter of fact, on one occasion, I told someone that I was selling with, I said, "Hey, look, man, you're going to chow. Don't come back. Like, I don't care if you check in. I don't care if you get in a fight with someone. I don't really care if you tell the police that I said that I was going to beat you up. I don't care, but don't come back."
Well, I was in Potosi and they put a guy in my cell that I noticed that he was going from cell to cell and getting moved up time. And I didn't know why. And come to find out, he tells me that him and his wife was in prison, put their son in the closet, locked him in the closet, and then went out partying. And when I came back, he was dead. You know, and I said, "Man, you gotta leave. You can't stay in here, dude." And I said, "I'm being nice about this because I should be beating your ass right now. You leave." So he goes out there and he tells the guard, he says, "I can't sell with him." So guard and caseworker called me down there and they said, "Why can't you sell with him?" I said, "Because of his case." They said, "Well, you know, you're going to have people with different types of cases, you know." And I said, "Well, I'm not selling with him." And I said, "One of us is going to get hurt." They said, "Is that a threat?" I said, "No, that's a promise. You know, one of us is going to get hurt." I didn't say him. I said one of us, you know. And they said, "Well, go back to the cell." So I went back up to my cell and they kept him down for a while. And then they came up there and they said, "All right, can he at least come up here and get his property?" I said, "Well, yeah." And so he came up there and got his property and then they moved somebody else in with me. But I was not selling with that at all.
And I don't blame you, because something like that in your case where they're trying to make you live with someone who has a case like that, that's going to grate on you over time. Yeah, you're going to have to look at that person every day. You're going to have to talk to them every day. Eventually, y'all are going to get in a fight. You know, you're going to be in a bad mood and you're going to look at that dude and be like, "You know what? I don't even like you anyway. I'm in a bad mood. Why not?"
Right. And that did happen one time, you know, but it was not with somebody with a case like that, but it was just, I just didn't really like the guy. I don't even think he really me either. Or maybe he didn't care, but either way, uh, I was just having a bad day and I said, "You know what?" And we started fighting, you know. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And people, I don't think people understand that. You know, they think that it's all about everybody's fighting, you know, everybody's a homosexual, and that's not it. Some people you get along with, and you may go a long time without fighting, and then you may get in a whole bunch of fights in a row, or you know, people in prison laugh and they joke. And I guess from what I've been reading about people saying they think we're all serious and that we're all killing one another. Well, that's pretty much the case at MSP, but these new prisons, it hasn't been really like that, you know. I mean, there's violence in them too, but there's those people just having fun, trying to just do their time, you know. When I say having fun, I don't mean they enjoy being in prison. It's just that they're making the best of the situation. You know?
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. Honestly, I would probably rather do my time in a soft camp than a rough one. I've heard a lot
Right.
of people over the years, especially after you've been down for a while, you'll hear people come from other places and be like, oh man, well, such and such prisoner is soft, or this camp is soft or that camp is soft. It's like, man, I would rather do my time at a soft camp. I don't like looking over my shoulder. If you want to go to a
Right.
rougher camp, be my guest, but I don't like fighting all the time just to exist. I'm not into that.
But I will say this, right about that, because when I was like in level 4s and stuff, it was a lot easier. But when I got down to level 1, I didn't really like it. And I wouldn't say it was soft because there was a lot of fights and stuff going on. It was just like nobody had no respect for one.
So explain to me, you said level 1 in Kansas. We don't do levels. We do security. So we talk about minimum security, medium, high, medium, and max. I'm guessing levels is pretty much your security level is what you're talking about, right?
Custody level, you level 1, you ain't got very much time. So you're in a minimum camp. It just up like 1s and 2s are in the minimum, and then you got the 3 and 4 levels. They're in the mediums, and then you got the level 5, which is maximum.
I got you. So a level 1 would be about the same as what a minimum is in Kansas. I didn't like that either for the same reasons. You had all those guys that were there just doing a 90-day PV, or they might have 1 or 2 years, and they thought that they were super tough, man. They would talk all sorts of trash. They didn't have the respect. They were stealing from each other. I didn't like that at all. And then the cops, the officers, they wanted to talk tough to you all the time too, because they were used to dealing with guys who were short timers who had something to lose. And doing all that time in
Right.
a medium and max security setting where it was all about respect. The inmates ran on respect. The officers understood that if they disrespected someone, there was probably going to be consequences to it. Going from that environment to a minimum facility, that sucked. I hated it. I didn't last but a few months. And then I tried to fight with a cop. It started out, I just threatened the guy. And then, I'm not saying that it was okay to threaten him, but I felt like it was something I needed to do at the time, I should say, because the dude insulted my mom and I felt some kind of way about that. So, I tried to jump over the desk and get at the dude. I got tackled by 5 officers and they took me out of there, but I don't think I was there maybe 3 months, and I was headed to max.
It's a two-edged sword. You go to max and there's more respect and stuff, but at the time there's more violence and stuff. You go if you're in a low level, yeah, things are easier, and most likely you don't have to get stabbed or anything. But the disrespect down there, like you said, among everybody is just crazy.
Yeah, that was the thing for me. It was just a different environment. And for some people, that is probably a good thing because it helps them make that transition. Because out here on the streets, you can't fight all the time and you can't go sharpen something if somebody disrespects you. You know what I mean? That would be crazy. But
Right.
for me, it wasn't very helpful. For me, it was more of a hindrance, but no two people are the same.
And I've met people out here. Well, I was talking to a neighbor down the road, and these 2 young guys came by and they started, and all 3 of them getting arguing. And so I'm just standing there, and we go on, and I find out from that he and I had been in prison together. Because I said, "Was you in prison?" And he was, "Yeah." And I said, "Where was you at?" And come find out we was on the same yard at the same time. I guess we just didn't recognize one another. But
Right.
he goes, those 2 there. He goes, I met them when I got down to the lower level camp. He goes, they've never been in anything but a low level camp. He goes, they walk around like they're because they've been in prison. He goes, they just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets pretty rough in a medium or a max. At least in Kansas. I don't know what the mediums are like in Missouri, but in Kansas, the medium and max, they're both violent. They can get pretty rough. And I don't know. I said I used to to laugh at guys who call the camp soft, but on the other hand, I really didn't like being in minimum. I couldn't stand it, but it was just because of a lack of respect. It wasn't because it was soft. It was because of a lack of respect. But yeah, I've seen guys that have done the same thing. You know, they went in for 12 months or something and they get out and they're acting like they're tough or like they were running something. Like, man, get out of here.
Got tattoos all over, you know.
Yeah. So
But
I
yeah,
worked in the infirmary, and I think I told this story on my channel before, but I was working in the infirmary and this dude came in there and he was trying to get my job, and I didn't like it. And I didn't like the guy very much. And I was talking to some of my buddies about it, and like, man, this guy's walking around with the unit team telling them that I'm not doing my job and all this other stuff, which I was doing my job. I have a very good work ethic, but this guy just wanted my job because it's the infirmary. They have pills and all sorts of stuff back there. It's kind of a shark tank. You know, you're back there with females, you're back there with drugs. Everybody wants that spot.
right.
So this guy wanted that spot. He's trying to get me out of the picture, whatever. But he, you know, I'm telling my buddies about it. Word gets back to him and he decides to confront me about it, saying that I was calling him a rat. Well, he was scared. He confronts me about it right in front of the unit team as he's walking around with the unit team, telling them all the stuff that I'm not doing. He confronts me in front of the unit team. And he said, man, I hear you've been going around calling me a rat. Well, I'm a killer. Look here. I knew what he was in prison for. He got hit for a manslaughter charge because he was driving too fast with his girlfriend on the back of his motorcycle. He wrecked it and she died. He got like 2.5 years for manslaughter, walking around calling himself a killer. And yeah, we got that situation settled, right? Not in front of the unit team either, but he got checked by some people. You know, it didn't come to blows or anything like that, but some people pulled up on him and he got scared, which I knew he was going to get scared. He wasn't in there for anything serious. He was putting up that facade. He wanted to act like a tough guy, but he wasn't a tough guy.
You know, there was a information thing that happened. I sat down, and then the other three seats were empty, and these two guys sat down. One was an older guy, one was a young guy, and this young guy would not stop talking. And the older guy kept telling me, he goes, man, I told you, man, he goes, your mouth is going to get you in trouble. So he looks over at me, the young guy does, and he says, hey, Pop's here. He's been at the walls. I said, oh, yeah. And he said he was somewhere else at some other camp. I can't remember which one he said. I said, what's that supposed to mean to me? The old guy's telling him again, he goes, if you want me to fucking school you, you need to listen to me. You know, you need to stop running your mouth. You know, we don't know this guy. And he goes, oh, I'm just talking to him. And he says, I'll just take your cake. Right? Now, I've had friends do that just joking, you know, and I just kind of laugh it off. But I didn't know this guy from Adam. He takes his fork and goes to stick it over like he's going to get my cake. And I just let him have it. And we got maced and everything. But I remember that old man telling him, as we're cuffed and being led away, he goes, I told you, what's it going to take for you to listen?
That sounds about right. I tried to listen to all the old heads, you know what I mean? Especially when you're young going down. That's the only way to find your way.
Oh, I did too. You know, I was 18 when I hit MSP. I'm going to take any advice anybody gives me. You know, I was listening to all the stories they told me. Every advice they had to give me, I was taking it all, you know, and I respected them, you know, and I think that's why they kind of like me.
Yeah, same here. I mean, a lot of people think that I'm a lot older than I am, and I credit that, you know, with hanging out with older dudes when I was in prison.
Exactly. If you just listen to them, a lot of times they ain't going to steer you. They'll tell you, you know, what's up, you know, what to look out for, you know, how to do your time and this and that. But they didn't talk to me until after my first fight. You know, everybody was just kind of like watching me, you know, to see how I was going to react. And then after my first fight, here comes all these dudes, you know, talking to me and everything. pat me on the back. Yeah, you did the right thing. You did good. Man, I got my ass stomped. It don't matter, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it too. And everybody always watches. When you're in prison, everybody observes. You don't do nothing that nobody doesn't see. You know, if you're someone who's going around not paying debts and acting a fool, people are going to see it. And on the other hand, if you go around as a stand-up individual, you stand up for yourself, you pay your debts, and you don't talk to the police, people are going to see it.
True. It's very true. And the other day, it just seems like Kansas and Missouri is very similar. I know the two states are right next to me. But it seems like the way people get time and everything is pretty much the same. You know, we ain't got the California politics or anything, but
From what I've heard, Harvey, I think the biggest difference between our two states as far as doing time goes, I would say the biggest difference that I'm aware of that I've been told by people who have done time in Missouri is that it's a little bit more open over there. And maybe you could shed some light on that. I don't really know. I've never done time over there. Is it pretty open? Are you out of your cell a lot? Are you locked up? What really happens throughout your day?
it used to be that it was pretty open. You know, like when I got to the walls, when they let the housing units out for the yard, all the housing units came out. You know, nowadays it's at least in the max prisons, it's a little bit different. They'll let like 2 housing units out in the morning and 2 others in the afternoons, you know. And then at night, we have the same thing with the 2 housing units. And it alternates each day. Like South Central Correctional Center had 2 ball fields. They only had 1 gym, but had 2 ball fields. And so while one housing unit's having the yard and the gym, the other one's just having the yard. And then the other 2 that aren't out, they may be out in front of the housing unit for those basketballs and stuff. I wouldn't say it's completely open. You know.
That actually sounds almost identical to how it is in Kansas. We do the same thing, especially in El Dorado. They'll let, 1 cell house out or 2 cell houses out at one time, and then they'll let another cell house. They have 2 yard periods in the evening. They have what's called a level 3 yard in the afternoon, which is based on their incentive level. In Kansas, if you stay out of trouble, you get your level 2. If you stay out of trouble a little bit longer, you get your level 3. And basically that just means you can have your electronics and you can order a bunch of stuff on Canteen. So they have a yard for just those guys. And then in the morning they have lay-in yard. So that's what's a little bit more open in Kansas is the lay-in yard, because everybody comes out if they're laying. It doesn't really matter what cell house they're in. And on level 3 yard, everybody comes out if they're level 3. It doesn't matter what cell house they're in. But in the evening, detail yard is in the evening, and that's divided based on what cell house you're from. But it's not the same way in every prison either. That was El Dorado. In Lansing, it's a little bit different. In Hutch, it's a little bit different. But to clarify for the people who are going to watch this, what we mean by open or wide open is how much movement you have. If a prison is open, it means you have a lot of movement. You're out of the cell, you're in the day room, you're in the yard, you're going to programs. You can move around. You can skate. In other words, you can go somewhere even if you're not supposed to be in that area at that time. You can move around. You can get stuff done. You can move contraband if you need to move contraband. You can holler at your buddies if you need to holler at your buddies. You can get places and do things within the prison is basically what we're saying.
Exactly. And we use that same word, skate. I worked in recreation when I was at South Correctional Center, so I was out all day anyway. And the thing about that, you always had somebody from one housing unit want you to pass something to somebody in the next housing unit, and they have wreck, And I would, if it was somebody I was cool with, I would just do it, But if it was somebody I didn't know, you're gonna have to give me something, I ain't taking this weed over and giving this to this guy without you giving me something, But if it's like I said, if it's somebody like a friend or something, I would just do it, Okay, I got you.
I always tried to be respectful of everybody. Like if a dude was working in the laundry and I needed some extra clothes, whether or not that was his job to do that, I would always give him something, either a couple of stamps or some coffee or something. Before I was on maintenance anyway, if I needed my lights changed out in my cell, I'd always give them something. I always try to look out for people because that is a hustle. Even if they didn't ask for it, it's just one of those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I did the same thing. Like if I got a haircut or something, or kick the barber down a bag of coffee or something. That's just something you did. Like you said, a few stamps to this guy for doing this, a few stamps to this guy for doing that, maybe a bag of tops to this guy, and it all comes back to you, really, because like you paying them, there's going to be a time when they're going to pay you for something.
Absolutely. Yeah. Nothing happens in a vacuum, is like we were talking about before. All that stuff, people are going to remember that. And if you're being watched, which in prison, you're constantly being watched by someone. If it's not the police, which usually it is the police, it's other prisoners, and they're going to see what you're doing and how you carry yourself. If they see you looking out for other people, they're going to look out for you. Not all of them will. There are sharks. People will try to take advantage of you, and people just want to look out for number one. But there are a lot of people who are going to look out for you when you need help.
Yeah, if you look out for them, they're going to look out for you. It's just the way it works. Like you said, there's some that that won't do that. You may do them a good favor, and it's like they forget about it. But for the most part, when you do things like that, it comes back.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And that's crazy that you worked rec, because I worked for the activities department, which is the same thing. I worked out at gym and yard, and my job, technically he could have asked me to do anything out of yard. My boss could have, but I was in charge of the musical instruments. I changed all the guitar strings. I made sure the guitars worked. I did all that stuff. But I was out there every yard period. In between yard periods, I was out of my cell all the time. I mean, you want a lot of movement. If you're in prison and you want out of your cell, that's one of the best jobs to have.
Prison is the job. If you want out all day, that's the job to have. Of course, in Missouri, in the match, you go through 90 days of food service before you do the other job. But yeah, that's the job you want. But there's some people that think food service is the job to have. I just don't think it is. There's some that think this job is the best job, and I think recreation is sweet.
I would say working for gym and yard was one of my favorite jobs, and being in the dog program, that was also big up there, because I love animals. I love dogs. So if I can get paid to take care of a dog, I'm there. But I didn't like food service. I refused to work in the kitchen because that's a shark tank. You got all those guys in there that are trying to get their hustle on and stuff, and they don't want people stepping on their toes, and everybody wants those spots. Everybody wants to be in a spot where they can get food to take back to the cell house, or get yeast, or get spices, or whatever, or hook someone up in some way. And you can't hate on them for it, but because everybody's trying to get those spots, if you get in one of those spots, people are going to be out to get you in one way or another.
And it's really bad if somebody's been there for a long time, and you come in and say a few months, a month, they put you in another spot, and it's in a spot that guy that's been trying for months to get, and they just passed him and gave it to you. Oh, you're talking about
Yeah, you're screwed. That can create all sorts of drama.
And I almost think they know that, because I've seen that happen.
Yeah. They had this chick in El Dorado, which I don't know if this is going to be appropriate for YouTube or not, but if it's not, I'll just edit it out. But they had this chick in El Dorado who was a kitchen worker, and she was forcing the inmates to go back in the cooler with her, which it didn't take much forcing, but some of the guys, I suppose it did, because they were Christians and had wives and felt some kind of way about it. But she was having guys go back in the cooler with her and have sex, right? And some guys wouldn't, because like I said, they were married, they had wives and stuff. Other guys just didn't trust the situation, or didn't like the chick or whatever. she would write these guys up for any little thing. She would make up charges against these guys and send them to the hole if they wouldn't mess with her. And it was just
Also,
on top of that, on top of the whole Shark Tank, everybody's trying to make a hustle and get in those spots. You had staff members that were taking inmates to the cooler and having sex. And if you didn't participate, you were going to the hole.
that's messed up. That's really messed up. And then she's probably the type of thing that would scream rape.
There was an officer that did that. So there was a female officer who would have sex with inmates in the guard shack out on the yard. And one time they got caught. They installed cameras outside of the guard shack and they didn't tell her. And so she brought an inmate in there one day and had sex with him. And then she got called to EAI, which is basically the intelligence unit in Kansas. And when they brought her up to EAI, she cried rape, even though she'd been having sex with that inmate for months and had sex with other inmates in that guard shack in the past. She got caught, didn't want to lose her job.
So did she keep her job or?
Oh yeah, she kept her job, and they sent the inmate to Supermax. They took him downtown and charged him, and he had a sex case after that. And you already know what happens in prison if you got a sex case.
Well, that happened over here too, except they filmed this officer like 3 times having sex with this guy. He's on camera. And so when they brought it to her, she tried to scream rape. They turned on the camera. Does that look like rape to you? And there wasn't nothing she could say, She was busted.
Right. Well, and that's good that they got her for, actually on camera showing what happened. In El Dorado, when that whole thing happened, the camera was outside of the guard shack. So it showed the door, but it didn't actually show what went on. You know what I mean? So it was basically his word against hers. And, the court's going to believe a prison guard over an inmate 99% of the time.
True. It's the same way if you write up, they're going to believe the guard over you,
Yeah.
And the write-ups, at least over here, the write-ups even say conduct violations, even say based on the officer's statement, we find you guilty.
Well, we got about 10 minutes, a little bit under 10 minutes left, Harvey. Do you have anything that you want to say to people on either of our channels before we go?
Yeah, I just want people, especially the young people, understand prison. It's not cool. It's nothing to glorify. It's nothing to brag about. And when you guys go to prison, you keep messing up. You're going to go to prison, and you're going to see there's nothing cool about it. But I'm hoping that those who have incarcerated loved ones will get something out of I having this conversation. They'll know a little bit more about what loved one's going through that's in prison. Yeah,
I would agree with that completely. There are a lot of prison channels out there, and some of them glorify the fact that a person's been in prison or something like that or committed crime. Harvey and I both did one thing, and it was enough to lose a significant portion of our lives to the criminal justice system. And not wrongly so. We both admit that we did something that was against the law and that there are consequences to that. Absolutely. But we both could have avoided going to prison and facing all the hardship. We've both been in fights. We've been beat up. We've seen stuff that we can't ever forget, that we wish that we had never seen, and been a subject to things that we didn't want to be subject to. And we could have avoided all that by changing our behavior and our perspective and our mindset ahead of time. All this stuff could have been avoided. And if you're watching this and you're a young person, old person, somewhere in between, and you can change how you're thinking, then do it. Why not? You can start today and make a positive change in your life. You don't have to do the same thing every day. People have an amazing capacity for change. With that, I want to thank you, Harvey, for reaching out to me, and I want to thank you for letting me be on your channel and for being on my channel, man. It's been great talking to you and doing this with you, and I hope we can do it again in the future. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, me too. It's been a pleasure, and I thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So with that, this has been an episode of From Prison to the Streets and Harvey Talks Prison. I'm Eric. We're here with Harvey Seidel, and we will see you all later.
Break these chains. They